Wonderful. Well, I'll kick it off. Thank you for joining us today. We have an awesome panel for you all to talk to, ask questions, and just pick their brains. What we'll do is we'll start with introductions. So if I could have each of the panelists in alphabetical order introduce themselves, what your name is, grad year, where you're currently located, and what your current job title is.
I guess I'll start. So my name is Aboira. I graduated in 2016 and currently located in Chicago, but at the moment I'm in Florida. But my current job title is digital media consultant. So what I do is I work with agencies across Chicago area and mostly in the Midwest as well. And I just partner with them and help them with any overflow work and also strategy when it comes to online and paid advertisements.
Great. I'll go next. I'm Eon Heiger. I am based in the Dallas area, Plano, if you're familiar, so just north of Dallas. I am a 1999 graduate, majored in communication, which I believe is now media studies, and minored in marketing. I currently work for a research company, and my title is Trademark Services Specialist. So I work with companies, and actually via law firms primarily, as they're developing new brand names and new logos and new advertising and slogans to help them make sure that they're not going to be infringing upon anyone else's intellectual property. So we work with trademarks, copyrights, and we have a division that handles patents as well. So work from home even before COVID, but it's changed a bit in terms of what we were just talking before you all hopped on, and not being out and about as much, but happy to answer any questions regarding this kind of career path, and look forward to talking with everybody.
Very good. I guess I'll go next. Misha Goli. I'm in Oklahoma City. I'm a 2004 graduate, marketing and management were my degrees with a minor in Spanish. I am my company is OKD Management, but I'm a franchisee for Dunkin' Brands. So I own and operate Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin-Robbins stores in Oklahoma City. We've got about 9 stores right now with 3 more in the works. And, it's essentially all the most basic business functions. I guess the more complicated ones sometimes, but that's kind of my day-to-day. I don't really have a typical day, which is the nice part, but that's what I do.
Great. And I am Moten Hopkins, graduating class 2009, marketing degree. I'm currently an HR business partner, so not necessarily marketing, but I'm here in the Fort Worth area, and I work at Lockheed Martin. So what we'll do now is, I think the intent of this is to really be casual conversation, right? We're coffeeing and connecting. So we're all talking, we're asking questions. So we want this to be an open forum to our guests on the call. If you have any questions you'd like to ask these amazing panelists, feel free to either come off of mute to do so, or you can use the chat box and then I can read them off. But are there any questions that anybody has for anyone right now?
Misha, I want to know if it's Coffee and Connect, why Dunkin' isn't sponsoring.
That's a great question. I wasn't expecting to get a Starbucks gift card, but I'll let that one slide.
Dunkin' next time.
Dunkin' next time.
Oh. No one's
always.
No one wants the first question, right?
Would love to hear, maybe where you're at, just some general information so we can learn a little about you.
Yeah. Everyone graduating in May. Do we have some juniors or sophomores on the call as well? Might be a mix.
I guess I can go first. My name is Jasmine Johnson. I am a upcoming senior at the University of Tulsa. I'm studying management and I'm double minoring in sociology and English. and I also have a business law specialization. It's nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet
Wow.
you, Jasmine.
Shoot, you're busy.
That's an impressive mix. How have you found it with balancing that? I mean, you've probably got a pretty heavy course load and then other activities you're involved with too.
Yes, ma'am. I think it can be a lot sometimes, but I think it's very enjoyable, so it doesn't seem like work. But it's just very fun. I'm just really interested in just the grand scheme of things, and also I would like to go to law school. So hopefully I can apply everything that I've learned into my future studies. I have an interest in contract law and intellectual property rights. And so, yeah, it kind of goes to your alley a bit. So, but yeah, I'm just really excited. I'm also just thankful and grateful that you guys are hosting this and are part of this. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, you're too kind. And are you on the TU Connect platform?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
We'll connect there. I'd love to talk to you. We could take over this whole session talking about intellectual property, but we won't bore others. But I'd love to talk to you offline in more detail about what I do, what my company does. We have a mix of some that kind of came from the legal side that might have been an attorney first and then come over to, we're more on the service provider vendor side of things. So and you find that, and I never thought personally I was going to end up being in sales. Like, sales was always kind of a negative in my mind. I really wanted to do more PR and marketing, but I think, you'll find your career path can lead in various directions. And, there's always some aspect of sales or marketing to any kind of job you're in, because you might be having to sell yourself for a promotion, or you're in product development and you try to get some excitement around new products that you're helping to bring up from the ground. And so, I think, we've all, I know, evolved a lot from being in class and graduating to where we are today. So it's great that you're taking part in something like this and getting an early start.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And can you kind of describe, what your role is, and so you're an account manager. So what does that look like? You're working with companies and
Yeah, good question. So, the company I work for is called Clarivate, and we work directly with companies, but then we also work with law firms who represent those companies. So they may be, filing trademarks and patents on behalf of the company. Some companies, if they're large enough, they have a pretty big in-house team that manages a lot of their intellectual property. So what I do is really just work as an intermediary between the law firms or companies and then our research team. So they're the ones that are actually going out there and trying to, make sure that they look in every possible place for something that may be conflicting. Because what happens is if they do roll out a new slogan or logo that looks like someone else's, it can end up being really costly in terms of them having to bring things back. And I know actually even out of our East Coast offices, they were working with Dunkin' Donuts when they wanted to go down just to Dunkin'. So You think about things like that with companies. And one of my big clients, you're all probably pretty familiar with, is Target. So they've done a lot of rebranding within their own store of their brands. And you may not even think about it, but things like, Joy Lab, or those of you that buy Archer Farms, Target actually owns those brands. It looks like someone else is bringing those into the Target store, but they own them. And so I work just with them as they're looking to, refresh different branding that they have, even packaging and things like that. And so I'm really the face of the research team, and then they're doing really the more difficult work behind the scenes that I just, it's amazing what they're able to find between, internet resources and other library and other options. So
so you guys are a lot more on the research side. So it's more about, I have a brand, I have something I want to do, and it's more about, let's make sure there are no conflicts before we go and
and that's great. That's a great question, because we also work on the protection side.
Okay.
So once you have your established brands and things that your company is using, then we help to enforce and make sure that as others might be trying to do something similar, we can help with you getting that information so the company can then take appropriate action. Yeah. Yeah.
And then, actually, I'm gonna bring up Warrior into this because I know, like, sitting on like the national marketing committee for Dunkin', you know, a lot of times we're looking at product names, looking at how often we have to use a certain name, and how much that affects marketing. So I'm sure you see that a lot in the digital space, right? When you guys are looking at the campaigns, you like anything you're doing, you know, making sure you're not running afoul.
Yeah, so that's actually a lot of what I used to deal with. So when I was working at Publicis Group, they're one of like the big 4 ad agencies that pretty much run all ads across the world.
Huge.
And one of the brands I was one of the companies I was under or I was working with was HP. And so I was building ads for HP, and we had like this document, like thick document of like things we can and can't do. Like can and can't say about the brand and all of that. So you had to make sure you know all this. And so like any ads you're writing and like creating, like we have to do the check first, and then it goes to a whole new team, and then they have the legal team within like our office, and they run their checks and everything just before they even publish an ad. And so yeah, it's a huge deal because you have when you're dealing with 22 million and more a month in spend, and you have that many eyes on it, you need to make sure you're not saying anything that's going to hurt the brand. So it's a lot of stuff that I think people don't really think about when they see an ad. They don't really, you only notice it when something's wrong. That's like, it's kind of like an airline pilot. Like for advertising, you only notice things when it's going bad. Like otherwise you just kind of go about your day, do your job. But yeah.
Yeah.
So who are the other guests on the call as well that have joined us? If you want to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about you.
Maybe on mute, or if you want to chat, if that's better, you want to just send something in the chat.
I see Stan and Nancy. I think you're on mute, Nancy.
You're on mute, Nancy. Still mute.
There you go.
Okay. I think
I am actually an 84 graduate from University of Tulsa. And I just thought I'd link in because I was curious about, I'm on Tulsa Connect, other things, but I just thought I'll just check in. I've been in this business a long time, so I'm on the newspaper side of things. So I've worked for a local business journal. We're part of 50 business journals across the United States. And then within the last 10 years, I'm working more for community newspapers. So I'm on the advertising side, and that was what my degree was too, communications and advertising marketing at Tulsa. But it's just kind of interesting to hear everybody else talk about what they're doing, and it's great. University of Tulsa is just, and I have my daughter just graduated from there as well.
Oh, nice.
So, yep, and so it's just such good things that Tulsa has brought to her, and then she did her grad school there. So I'm still a big proponent for University of Tulsa.
where are you based out of, Nancy?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
I am from St. Louis.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And I went to St. Joe for high school. That's the St. Louis question for those of you that don't know.
Where'd you go to high school? I went to Visitation. So
nice.
So that is great. Well, yeah, I just thought this would be kind of an interesting opportunity. So I don't think I have a whole lot to maybe add, but I'm on a different side than a whole different industry on the newspaper side, which people think it's dying, but it's really not. So, yeah. So.
Yeah. It's been amazing to see the pivot of newspapers and digital in real time, and there's a lot that you've been able to do to not only sustain but grow.
Yes, it's just so I've been in the business for like 35, 40 years, I want to say, and I've seen it go up and down, but it is still very much live. A lot of people still want to hold things in their hand and read it. The under 30 age group, probably not so much, but according to my girl, I have two girls, 29 and 26, and they get, everything's online, so that they don't get it. But yeah, it's really interesting to hear all of you talking about your different areas of expertise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Just kind of.
All right, Stan, we're going to pick on you.
No pressure if not, Stan. That's fine too. I do have a question that I do want to ask the panelists. What skills are most critical to success in the work you're currently doing?
Yeah. People management. I think that's probably, when I look back at the things you learn in college, the one that probably doesn't get enough attention is some of your classes like organizational behavior, but really it's people management. And really, I think no matter what field you're in, whether it's knowing how to manage your employees, superiors, customers, and being comfortable around that, and knowing how to be flexible and adapting to your situation. I think that's the hallmark of a lot of successful people, is that you can drop them in any room and they learn how to read it and know how to work it. And it's not just about, I'm not saying it like in a be a politician type of way, but it's about knowing how to manage people's emotions, because that's 9 out of 10 times, I feel like that's what we're dealing with and how to fix the issues.
I would probably add to that also time management on top of that. Especially with what I do, there's a phrase I learned very early in advertising: everything's on fire and due yesterday. So just making sure you're managing your time properly, as well as like prioritizing what needs to be done now versus what needs to be done later. And I would say, I'm trying to think of something else. Really, along with people management, I would probably say like managing your own emotions and making sure you're not projecting that on your teammates, because they're there to help you. I've definitely worked with a lot of people that you can and you've probably seen them, they walk into a room and you already feel kind of tense just with them there, because they're very, very stressed and they clearly show it. It's just working on that and managing that, and knowing the people around you are probably stressed as well. But you just need to be able to kind of manage that in different ways. So yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, great points, both of you, and would just echo all of that. And then, mix in the communication piece of it, right? So just, being able to have conversations, sometimes tough conversations, about, anything from, help me help you, to, talking to clients. I'm in a very client-facing role. I mean, that's what I do all day, and have to just be confident in relaying messages. And sometimes it's not a great message. It's, well, we're not going to be able to meet that deadline, or this is taking longer than expected, or may cost more than expected. And you just have to be clear about that. People appreciate the candor and the honesty. When you try to make excuses or over-explain, it can really get you down a rabbit hole. And so I find that just clear, concise communication, and, being upfront with expectations. That's all, just extremely important. And in the end, your colleagues and your clients, whether they be internal clients or external clients, they really do appreciate that. And Moten, I would turn it back to you as well. I mean, being in HR, you deal with a variety of, just things.
Things is the right way to put it. I agree with all three of y'all. I think what we're seeing right now in HR, and what you all going to the workforce will see next year, or the coming years, is right now we're in such a diverse workforce, and specifically talking about age. When you look at right now in time, I think we have, I can't remember the statistics, but right now we have the most blended workforce from an age perspective in human history, because of baby boomers and then the new generation that's coming into the workforce. And so being able to manage people, be able to talk across, age, experience, etc., communicating what you want effectively and well, and then managing your time to meet all those deadlines and say, okay, what's really important is extremely, those three things are definitely going to help you. I think they all hit it right on the head. And so that's the one piece I would say, I consult with all the time, or try to deal with all the time. Me being a newer professional in HR, having to consult a manager on somebody who's been doing something for 30 years, if I'm not communicating, my point the right way, or effectively or respectfully, me supporting the client can definitely go the wrong way. So I think it's a combination of all those three things. And yeah, they all did a great job, but those are three really great effective skills to have.
I did want to share, I think Stan, I'm not sure if Stan's audio is working for us, but Stan actually submitted a couple questions in advance. So I don't know if you can hear us, Stan, but I do want to give a shout out to your questions, and I'll put them in the chat so that you guys can see them and speak to them as they fit into your conversation. But one of the questions that Stan submitted that I thought was really interesting was advertising, marketing. A lot of careers in this field are about communication, like you were just speaking to, but also storytelling. So what kind of stories make the most impact, or how can your communication make the most impact? I thought that was an interesting question that Stan posed for us. So I'll put the rest of those questions in the chat so you all can see them, but feel free to discuss.
That is a good question. I mean, I think, for me, people relate to stories where, I'm willing to kind of throw myself under the bus a little bit sometimes, right? When you can admit, okay, I learned this because of handling it wrong the first time, or, something where, it's not just this instant success story. Those are nice to hear, but those aren't always the realistic stories to tell. So I think just, again, going back to being candid and honest, when you're able to tell a story that can resonate, and, people, I find too, being in sales, just to be quiet and let the other person tell the story. Sometimes I can kind of kick it off, maybe give a quick example, but I really try to do a lot of listening. And I think people appreciate that. They want to be heard. We even have things that we do from a sales approach of, finding out what's important to you. I could talk on and on about different services or products we have, but if I first start by asking the client some questions and getting them to tell me their story, I think that's really, really effective.
I definitely agree with that. I was going to add to that. Yeah, definitely stories that talk about the journey, not so much just like, okay, we succeeded in this aspect. I do remember one story I did tell a while ago. It regarded working with a client. Basically, like, to sum it up, I could have said we saved the client X amount of dollars by doing this, this, and this. But breaking it down, telling them like how we kind of got to that process, mentioning how this client came to me with a problem, but actually I realized the real issue was something completely different, and relaying that to the client and them being them listening to that and actually wanting to work with me on this brand new issue, and then that saved the client and the company a ton of money, that's an interesting story. So kind of breaking it down, talking about the journey is, I think that resonates with a lot of people, and it's definitely helpful with interviews. I can tell you that.
I would say, I've had the privilege of like being, I would say beginning to end with a lot of products we've done and campaigns we've had at Dunkin'. And the thing I think that it's the most common mistake is relying too much on research, understanding what's your opinion and what your feelings are versus what the data tells you. I think, going through and learning about advertising and marketing, you can't forget the importance of data. You can't forget the importance of the math behind it, what research says, what consumers say. It's not about, what I want to see, what Misha wants to see, like, for example, a Dunkin' store. It's about who's our customer, who are we targeting, what do they want to see. It's, I think a very common misconception is this idea that like brands go out and tell people what to do. That's not always the case. It's about understanding what people want and finding how to fulfill those needs. And that's where the research comes in. But that's where the whole listening piece comes into play. It's amazing how much time, for example, we will spend talking to customers about what something tastes like, what is it called, what is it named, what's the portion size, all of those things to make sure it fits what they want, not just what a group of us in a room thinks is the right answer. And that's really important.
That's great. I think maybe we can get to one more Stan's questions before, I know we're coming up on time for the first session. Let's see. So what is the most common mistake you see being made in advertising in the marketing world?
It's kind of tough.
Is it tough?
Most common mistake.
Oh, I saw it. Yeah, Stan just said stories that are fascinating, amusing, and surprising. Spot on. Yes. Yeah. Mistake, I'll just throw something out there briefly. Just sort of capitalizing on maybe some of the social issues at hand. You have to be really sensitive in how you do that. And there's been some big name companies that have gotten some, I think kind of justified criticism of their response in certain situations.
I definitely agree with that. I would also add a common mistake I think I see quite a bit is probably when brands try to be too trendy, not thinking too much about like the long term. And I would say like their investors, they're trying to be just like capitalize on the hype or what's going on right now. And I've seen that bite them pretty much in the butt, like in the moment, because it doesn't reflect what the core of the brand is. They're just trying to capitalize on just something going on right now. And I see that a lot, actually. It's not only in just companies and brands, but you probably see it in music as well. So yeah, just focusing on the long term and the big picture more is, I think, what people should kind of go for, depending on like your brand.
I would add one to kind of go off of that. It's relaxing. I think that could be sometimes the biggest mistake. Relaxing and being too confident, because that's when you're the most susceptible. When you think you've got it all, and you think you're the smartest one in the room. Because guess what? You're never the smartest one in the room. Like none of us are.
No. Oh, and good point too by Stan, that keep in mind what you send out comes back. That's true, especially even in this digital age, things live forever.
Forever. Well, that was wonderful. So what we'll do now is to the folks that are here from the first session, you're more than welcome to stay. We're going to start to begin to, I guess, have the second set of folks come into this next session. Yeah, panelists, we'll do a reintroduction once we get a few more folks on the call from the next session, and then we'll go back to the Q&A. And I think maybe we'll touch back on one of Stan's questions as well, because there's some pretty good ones in here.
Mm-hmm. Hello, Steve. I think you're muted.
You're unmuted, yeah.
I was muted. Thank you so much. I said hello, and a special hello to Aboira. How are you?
Hey, I was like, I recognize you.
Yeah, you do.
How are you?
I saw your name and I thought, well, I thought he was in Florida.
I am right now, actually, but I'll be back in Chicago on Thursday.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Are you in Chicago, Steve?
I am not. I am in Tulsa.
Oh, nice. Very good.
Good to see you.
You as well. You as well. You haven't changed a bit.
I think my hair is a little shorter.
It might be. Mine might be as well. Hey, that was a little too boisterous of a laugh there, Ann.
It's just my natural laugh, so.
You're not laughing at me. You're laughing with me. Oh, trust me. I've laughed until I cried about, I'm fine with it. It's just hair. I save so much money on shampoo.
There you go.
I had a quick question. I didn't know if you're going to do the introductions right now, but I just had a quick question. Generally speaking, how has college prepared you for the obstacles or opportunities that you face on a daily basis within your profession?
That's a good question. I can start. So I would say college has, one thing I learned in college that I definitely think is helpful is the ability to just look for answers yourself. A lot of times with different assignments, most of the answers weren't always in the textbook. So I'd always have to Google and just look up the answers. And that skill of just having the confidence to just go out and research is tremendously helpful in the workplace. Because even with a lot of what I do, clients will come to me with questions and problems. Most of the time, I'd probably say 90% of the time I'm problem solving. I don't know the answers right away, but I have the ability to reach out to people that know the answers, or I can look them up myself. And that wasn't something that I was really taught in, I guess, high school. It was more like the answers are in the textbook, read the textbook, and then do well on the test. Whereas in college, you kind of learn answers aren't always going to be in the textbook. And so just that skill alone was immensely helpful. And then a lot of the classes I took in college were basically the building blocks for what I do now. And I would say, I just remember a couple classes, psychology of advertising. And then there was a couple classes with Bill Hinkle that I really liked, and that really helped me and made me think of advertising in a different light, and kind of ruined television for me because I realized now television is really for advertising. It's not really for the show. And so stuff like that.
One thing I wanted to add on this, and Jasmine, I think you'll resonate with this. I was a student athlete in college, so I think balancing very extreme priorities is something that college taught me, having to manage performing on the field, traveling, going to school, taking your tests, a social life, extracurriculars. And I know what you told us about your background and everything you're studying. I think you understand where I'm coming from, but I think that helped transition to the workforce, because work is even more about balancing. I thought that was difficult, but it's more about balancing, your different tasks and priorities, and then your family and personal life. So that's definitely one thing I think I learned at college, and TU specifically, because the school is so small, it allowed me to do more than just play sports. I was able to get involved in other things outside. And so that definitely helped me a lot.
And I'll add on to that. I think where you hit it on the head, it's about learning to learn, learning to find, learning to scout information. I think the one thing college doesn't do well for you is that it there's no such thing as like a perfect case study, you know. And sometimes the answers I think in college or in school come a little too easy because it's a problem that's been solved. It's a problem. It might be something that someone's already worked on, and you have to understand that with the stuff you're working on in college, sometimes it's not necessarily about the solution itself. It's about the process you go to find the solution, because you're going to have a lot of gray. You're going to have a lot of just unanswered questions once you're in the real world, in the workforce. And it's about knowing how to navigate those and knowing what resources to use. And the other one I would say is like learning and becoming comfortable to talk and speak and present in front of people, in front of groups. And I'm going to pick on you guys, and I'm sure you guys all have your reasons, but it's about things like in the Zoom world or Team Hangouts world, you know, knowing to have your camera on, knowing to be present, knowing how to interact, because these are the skills that you're going to have that if we were sitting right now in a business meeting, that you would just immediately get discounted and judged if you don't know how to do it. You might be the smartest person ever, but if you don't know how to relay that, it's going to hinder you. And knowing how to do that. And what I like about TU, I think one good thing TU does is it allows you to be a big fish in a small pond and really gain that self-confidence you need for your workforce. But then guess what? Once you graduate, you got to go out there and you got to do it. You're no longer one of a couple thousand. You're one of millions, and you better be the best one there.
Yeah, you go from that big fish in small pond to the little fish in a really big pond. So yeah, just not being afraid to, be confident and, be present, and don't just think being present means, well, you're there. It's being active and participation. And and learned that a lot through classes and extracurriculars at TU. And I think, it's been said, but, the ability to really be involved in as much as you can and you want to and your schedule allows. And I know many of you are probably balancing working and classes and maybe even families as well. But, taking the time to figure out where you can prioritize and get involved, because, I learned a lot in the classroom, but I think more what I took away from TU is experiences outside of the classroom with the different groups that I was involved with, everything from, Greek life onto professional organizations, PRSSA and marketing groups and things like that.
And then I would add, for the students in particular, think of the things you had to talk about and present in class. I'm sure you've all had presentations where the 10 slides you need to present, and that is all you need to know. And if you cannot go backwards, you got one way you're going because you don't know your information enough, versus the presentations where you truly know your stuff. And it's not about you like writing some things on a note card. You know it, and you could go forward, you could go backwards. People can ask you a million questions in every which direction. The real world is that second one. And if you don't know it, you will get found out quickly. And the respect that you get in a classroom of someone letting you finish your presentation doesn't happen in the real world. Because guess what? They're going to ask you a question that's on slide 20 that you haven't even got on. And you better know the answer without saying, let me go forward and find it. And they're going to have you go 3 slides back and 4 slides forward, and everything you just practice on those note cards, just throw them away because they're garbage. And prepare yourself for that now. Because I imagine like Ann right now, when you talk to clients, if you're talking to a new client, you might have it all set up exactly how you want to talk to them. And if you don't know what you're talking about, they're going to throw a question out of left field, and they're going to find you out. They're going to mark you quickly that you're a scam if you don't know it.
So to give you an example about that, when I was working with HP, our pitch deck, or actually our quarterly meeting deck, was 68 slides. The presentation was 3 hours, and it was all analytics of pretty much the whole HP business on both the enterprise side and the consumer side. And I was on the consumer side. And you're in the room with pretty much all the high-level C-suite HP execs and giving a presentation on the whole business and what you're basically spending their money on. And all of us had to know our stuff. We were working on that for pretty much when I started until the day of the presentation. It's a lot, but I mean, you're gonna be in the weeds when you're working, and you'll have people around you preparing you for that. But it's just, this is kind of just letting you know, like, this is what it looks like outside to you.
Yeah. And guess what? That bad group member you have in college, that person's somehow getting an income and a salary in the real world, and you're not just stuck with them for one semester. So learn how to work with, learn how to make them do what you need them to do, and how to make them productive, because that's part of it.
Yes.
That's a great point. So what we'll do is we'll just briefly, because I think Samuel is the one that just hopped on. Let's maybe just do a quick around, introduce ourselves real quick, and then maybe we can hop back to one more of Stan's questions, or if Samuel has a question for us.
Sure.
So we'll do the intros in alphabetical order again. Be consistent.
First, your
All right. So yeah, my name is Abora. I graduated 2016 marketing degree, and I currently right now work in Chicago as a digital media consultant. And so what that looks like is I work with a lot of agencies in the Chicago and Midwest area, and I work on the strategy side, but also anytime they have overflow of work, I'll dig in and help out with the technical, but also my main job is around strategy. So anything that has to do with paid search advertising or online ads, I help them with their performance and optimization of their accounts.
Great. I'm Eon Heiger. I am a 1999 graduate, communication major, marketing minor, and I am based in the Dallas area in Plano, and I work for a company called Clarivate, and we work with companies on intellectual property needs. I'm specifically on the trademark side. I'm a trademark services specialist, so I work alongside companies and or law firms that represent those companies as they bring a brand to fruition. So from the concepting of potential names on up to clearance for them to use it in the market. And then from there, we help to protect those brands and trademarks that those companies have established. So it's kind of start to finish on the full life cycle of trademarks. And then we have a team that does patents and copyrights as well. So anything in the intellectual property space, we provide the research and the services to help protect those intellectual property assets once the companies have started using them.
All right, Misha Goli, 2004 graduate in Oklahoma City. I'm a franchisee for Dunkin' Brands. I have Dunkin' and Baskin stores in and around Oklahoma City metro area, currently sitting at 9 stores. And also, you know, sit on several national committees, advisory committees for the brand, mostly around marketing and operations. And that's the gist. I think you guys all know what Dunkin' does, I hope.
We do.
It's the coffee card you should have got.
I think Will just slid off before you met. I'm Moten Hopkins. I graduated in 2009 with a marketing degree. I'm an HR business partner at Lockheed Martin here in Fort Worth, Texas, and manage people and people problems. So that's what we do. So what we'll do is, Sam, I don't know if you're able to come off of mute and kind of introduce yourself, and do you have a question for us?
Or anyone else, if I know we've got some chat going too.
I would kind of echo what Moten was saying a little bit ago, or maybe it was Misha. Somebody was talking about it, about big fish in a little pond, and I'll be the first to admit I think of myself as pretty humble, but sometimes you think of yourself as man, I'll get a job. I'll get a job right out of college. I got, 3 internships in 3 summers. I don't even need to track who I apply with, because as soon as I apply, I'll get a job. Well, let me tell you, folks, I graduated in December of 2019 with my MBA, and here I am still knocking on doors. Now, COVID probably played a part in that, and regrettably, ageism plays another part in it. So I'm told, but I just want to echo that you are a big fish in a little pond at TU, and then all of a sudden you're not. I am curious what you guys, if you have thoughts on it, what your thoughts are as far as the way for a not so young person to be able to market themselves better, to be hired.
So I can kind of speak to this because my first agency, one associate that I hired that was working on my team was working on his PhD, and he was, I don't know his exact age, but he was at least, I would say 45, and he was an associate on my team. And the reason we gave him the job was because of the way he presented himself in the interview. The first thing he said, of course, he's like, I understand, like, I'm probably not your typical applicant. But he talked about the skills, not only that he knows in digital media, but what else he brings to the team. And he's, can't remember what he was working on his PhD for, but his ability to just tell a story, and his ability to manage, and what he expressed as far as like his experience managing and working with others, and this is what I'm good at. It just highlighting the strengths. It's obvious, it's clear, the situation, but like highlighting the strengths and what specific skills you bring to the team, and knowing exactly what the field is in the job. And it just made it really, really easy, because he wasn't just sharing general skills. He was he did his research on the business. He understood the ins and outs of our business, even just from more than like any other applicant. So we could tell he was very, very determined. And so seeing that was the reason why, because we knew right away we could rely on this guy. So I would say that just being completely honest, and also definitely doing your research on whatever company it is you're looking at, and being able to express that and talk about it.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
If I can add one thing too, I think from, because even before you get to the interview, it's, how do you get the interview? Being in HR, we look at resumes constantly. I think, especially if it's been a career change, having or finding translatable skills in the previous experience that you have that relate to the new role or the new skill set that you're trying to get the job for is extremely important. I think the great thing about once you do get to that interview phase is that the depth of experience that you bring to that conversation, which you was just talking about, compared to those that don't have as much experience, is huge. I think the relatability, being able to talk about experiences, because experiences are extremely important. I think that's one thing a lot of grads will learn once you get out of school. It's not just knowledge, it's experience. It's like playing sports. You may not be the fastest person out there, but if I know the step that person's going to make before they make it, then I'm there, right? And that's what experience is in the workforce. So I think being able to manage that and put those transferable skills that you may have done in one career job to the new one, I think is a huge step to getting to that interview phase, and then knock it out of the park.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I agree with that. And I think especially, when I look at like when we've done hires for, above store and above, like so a little bit more of like, higher level hires, we'll get applicants that are, that don't have experience in our space. And so we kind of, I hate to say it, we immediately discount them and kind of put them aside, versus if there's an explanation, like be ready, especially if you're looking for a change in industry or change in what you've done from the past. I think that was like point on, is being able to explain, here are the things I've done that can relate to this position. and how I can bring a different point of view and why why you think you're the right person to do that, and understand. And also, I would say having the humility of being able to say, I'm not coming in saying that I'm going to know everything just because of my experience, because I know it's a new field, but I'm eager to learn. Here's the steps I want to take, and going from there as well.
Great, thank you.
So let's transition to Samuel's question, which I think is a good one. Let's see here. I wanted to know, even though all jobs ask for specific hard knowledge-based skills, what kind of soft skills have you all developed that are extremely useful in the workplace?
Definitely people skills. So going from a small agency of roughly 40 people to a large one of roughly 100,000, people skills is huge. And that's not something that really came natural to me. My background, even before TU, is a military school. So I was very used to being like direct and just the way I kind of came across, I realized, especially when I started managing people, I was like, I can't do this. I come across a little too harsh, and I need to figure out a way. How do I get people to do what needs to be done, especially when it's really, really urgent, without like scaring them, and also without coming across as like this mean boss. And just that alone was huge, because I mean, I was in that position before. I was that associate who had a boss who was very direct, and I understand what it felt like to be very stressed out. One, because you have this task, and two, because your boss is angry at you. And so putting yourself in those shoes really, really helps. So like definitely people skills, but also communication. Being very good at communicating is, I guess, another skill that's not really, I guess, a hard skill.
Yeah, and along with communicating, and this came up earlier, but listening and observing. I mean, being able to, walk into a room and, well, or walk into a virtual room even, and, be able to kind of read who's there. And it is tougher virtual. And I think, we've learned a lot over the last year as, at my company internally, and then with external client meetings, they've all been virtual, and it's harder to get those body language cues and other things where typically okay, yeah, I need to change the subject, like they're not following as closely if their camera's off, or even if their camera's on, it's really hard to tell sometimes. So just being able to listen and observe, those are two huge skills that I even from a sales perspective, I try to listen more than I'm sharing, because people want to be heard, and you need to learn what's important to them in order to be able to effectively position potential solutions. So asking questions and really just digging deeper, and not just looking surface level, but what is going to happen 2-3 years from now, long term, and having that broader perspective.
Yeah, I would echo the same. People. It's knowing how to talk to people, work with people, understand what motivates them, what doesn't motivate them, and knowing that the higher you are on the quote unquote food chain of a company, the more adaptable you need to be. It's expected, it's needed, it's necessary, and if you're not comfortable right now, if you got dropped in a room full of strangers right now and you're not comfortable, I would highly suggest you find a way and you learn how to. This is the best time to do it, because it'll help you go far in life.
Yeah, I think there's tons of research out there right now from an HR perspective where there's a technical skills gap that's coming, and I think we all know that, especially with digital transformation. But the bigger skill gap is the soft skills, the communication skills, like Misha said, being able to just stick somebody in a room and then being able to effectively communicate and relate to people. And I think that'll serve you almost better than the technical skills, because if you get to the point of where you're in the interviewee, everyone technically is probably around the same level, right? It's how those soft skills and how at the end of the day, do they want to work with you? Are you able to communicate your point of view? So those soft skills, being able to communicate, work with different types of people, work on different diverse, cross-functional teams, all those things, those completely will knock your interview out of the park, compared to someone who's just this technical SME that can answer every question in the book, but can't go facilitate a conversation with somebody down the hallway to actually get the job done. So, consulting with engineers and leaders and all these things, the biggest issues that I see when we have disciplinary or even like work stoppage issues is really communicating. People just don't know how to communicate amongst each other or across different organizations. So I think that's a great question.
And I would add, you hit it on the head with the diversity. It's, if you look around who you interact with regularly, if they all look like you, if they are all studying the same thing as you, if they're all the same age as you, you've got problems in the real world. Because when you go into the workforce, everybody's different. Everyone has a different background. They have different knowledge base. They have different ways of communicating, and learn how to work with them. I mean, get outside of your comfort zone today, because now is a time where you can afford to, I don't want to call it make mistakes, but it's a time where you can go out and do things and the repercussions are maybe less versus later on down the road. And you need to learn how to just have a talk with anybody easily.
Yeah.
And tap into resources, right? Like these panelists that are here, they're all on, U Tulsa Connect. Other senior members, and your family or any kind of mentors that you have, tap into those people and see how do they go about doing this, because it is something that's kind of learned by trial and error. But if you have these resources available to you, they can tell you the errors that they made, so you don't have to do that. And then, to the point you just made as well, like right now is your least amount of risk to test the waters, right? If you're dropping down the line, you can take that risk of making that mistake early on and then learning from it, so it will, help propel you in the future.
Yeah, and I know we've even got some, earlier graduates on as well, and it's never too late. I mean, I kind of shifted my career path a bit about 10 years ago and, joined an organization that's specifically for trademarks and tried to kind of learn and work my way. And now I'm, a committee leader within that organization. And, so it's not something you have to do while you're in school or right out. It's something just ongoing as your career evolves. Just don't be afraid to look and see what's out there and where you might be able to, get involved outside of just your workplace. And I think too, then as you may shift paths again, being able to talk about, what you do outside of the office is really, really important. And employers look for that as well.
That's something I was going to touch on, stuff you do outside the office. So on top of just being a part of the TU Alumni Board, I also joined Union League Club of Chicago's professional networking group, board member for Boys and Girls Club, and committee leader on a couple of things with the Boys and Girls Club. So that I think really helped me get even better with networking and talking to people, because something I really wish I did when I was at TU was utilize the fact that I have a @utulsa.edu email. The power of that is tremendous. And same thing with a Boys and Girls Club email address. People are more willing to respond if you are a student or if you're a part of a nonprofit organization like that than, most just regular work emails. They'll either kind of think it's a business transaction or something, but if it's a student, it's a potential opportunity for them, but also a great learning experience for you. So I would definitely utilize the fact that you have that email and reach out to people as much as possible and kind of learn from you heard their mistakes and what they did wrong, because there's, I think, no better way of learning than through other people's mistakes.
It's true.
But we've never made mistakes. The people.
Well, we are at time, so just to be respectful of everyone's time and work days, and then your all schedule as well. Just want to say to the panelists, thank you very much for sharing your experiences and your time and effort. And for those that joined, and the excellent questions that y'all provided to us. Thank you for the time, and I hope this is beneficial. Like I said before, I believe everyone is on UTulsa Connect. So you can connect with them or myself if you have any questions or can think of a question afterwards. But we're truly appreciative of the time. Hope everybody enjoyed their coffee. Go get some Dunkin' Donuts coffee or Dunkin' coffee. And go to you. It's a pleasure to be a part of this organization with these great people.
Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah.